All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are joining us. Welcome to the Business Architecture Forum broadcast. Just a real quick disclaimer before we get started. This webinar is being recorded for the purposes of sharing and collaborating. So if you would like to not be recorded, please feel free to use the chat. I'll be monitoring those throughout this session. Before we get into our topic, we're just going to do a quick update on where BAF is headed. That is the newly rebranded Business Architecture Forum. So after each webinar, we're not just going to move on. We bring the speaker back and we're going to focus on actually how to use these ideas within your own practice. And so after you hear the ideas, we'll do an interview and see how we make it work. Because the goal is we want to learn it, try it, and share what actually works. We're also making it easier to stay connected digitally and building out our local communities. A lot of you are familiar with the Twin Cities, TCBIF. We are also looking at launching for Houston, Texas, and we are also looking possibly in Des Moines, Iowa. We'll have more local areas as things progress. So if you are interested and you think that you have a population that could support a community, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. So other update is we are also opening up partnerships with APQC, IIBA, CAN, and Beta Minnesota. More connections, more perspectives, and more ways to be able to move forward. So this is just the next step. So let's get into our topic. Agentic AI is rapidly moving beyond experimentation into real enterprise workflows. Many of us have had the conversations, but while many organizations are focused on tools, models, and prompts, there are far fewer that are actually addressing the core question: how do you architect an enterprise that can safely and effectively operate with autonomous and semi-autonomous AI agents? This session is going to explore how business architecture must evolve to support agentic AI, not as a technology layer, but as a new operating model. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Ahmet Akal, who is a process intelligence and transformation leader focused on helping organizations turn data into action. His current focus is on agentic AI and enterprise operating models, how organizations move beyond isolated use cases to coordinated, decision-capable systems. He's the creator of the Prince framework. Prince is process intelligence, reasoning, integration, navigation, continuous optimization, enterprise enablement, which provides a practical foundation for designing and governing AI-enabled enterprises. So welcome, Amit.
Thank you very much, Jenny.
Yeah, so feel free to go ahead and jump in there. Tell us a little bit more about agentic AI and business architecture's role.
Absolutely. Let me start sharing my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
We are seeing your PowerPoint presentation screen.
And can you see it right now?
We're seeing your speaker notes.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you very much, Jenny, once again. It's a great day here in Minneapolis at noon. I don't know where you are, but I hope you're having a great day as well. And so I'm very happy to be talking about this today with you. And how do we go from process maps to intelligent systems? How do you architecture our applications, all our enterprise in the age of agentic AI? This is a topic that I've been thinking, like many of you, for so many time. I'm not a developer, but I work with IT very closely. I've been in financial sector here in Twin Cities over 20 years, and this is always a question of mine. how do we do that? What's the right way to do this? So hopefully I got a chance to describe what I was thinking, how we can approach this, and hopefully we'll get your feedback. Okay? So with that, I'm going to jump into the next one. So I'm going to start with a simple observation. I mean, we've been mapping processes for over 20 years here. I mean, we spend so much time, all of you. We do them, we look at them, we just, we have spaghetti diagrams, we got, you name it. I mean, there's so many things in implementing systems, and we're trying to optimize workflows. Continuous improvement is something that we all do all the time. And yet, there's always performance gaps. They remain, they seem to be remaining. So why are they? I mean, there's all these bottlenecks that we just come to, we face with. They shouldn't happen, right? I mean, we're all talking to each other and we're using really greatest technology. So the decisions are slow, and the processes sometimes stall and they stop. I mean, bottlenecks sometimes, taking long, maybe even explainable and acceptable, but a process to stop is really, really not a good thing for that product. So, like I said, I mean, the bottlenecks, they still surprise us, and having very slow decisions impacts, the bottom lines. I mean, after all, we're all doing this for profit mostly, and even for non-profit, you have to make those decisions in an efficient, expeditious way. So some systems are still not connected; they are very disconnected, and sometimes we have documentation, but that doesn't necessarily equate to intelligence. So that's kind of the reality that we're all faced with. I was faced with, and so I said to myself, what can we do? And of course, before I get to that, I kind of look at the industry patterns. So currently, industry patterns, and when I say AI, there's all these, that kind of equates to tools, models, prompts, but it's technology. So I don't even want to say AI sometimes, because people use this all the time. It's kind of very trendy. It's, everybody says AI, and some people are very tired and sick of it. And it's actually computer usage. I mean, when computers were first introduced back in the 80s, the IBM and some other companies, Apple and some other ones who are not even around, they did mainframes, of course, were there before, but it wasn't kind of mainstream used by households. So when PCs came to town, I mean, people were kind of really, really amazed, and they start using it. But they were using it for, I don't know, maybe word processing, maybe for accounting, general ledgers and whatever. It was, you had to have a specific software for it. But anyway, AI, under that space, there are tools. Now we have models. Of course, back then we didn't have that much models, and prompts didn't exist. But industry right now focuses, on technology. So little change in how work happens, though. I mean, it's just the people are still the people. I mean, it's just the same as 1980 or even before my time, or right now. I mean, that's not how work happens. Work happens, I think, in a little bit different way. So, I have that slide headlined as "Why AI Fails to Scale." Are they failing? I think it. I don't know if you were to take a raise of hands. What are your opinions on this? Many of us are going to say that. I mean, many of us are still waiting to see what's going to happen, and whether we should do this. I mean, AI implementations are not cheap or economical. They are quite expensive. I mean, depending on what are you doing and what kind of resources you have, it's still going to cost you something. And so why do they fail? I think the first bullet point says broken processes. I think that's a very important one, and fragmented data. I mean, and the other bullets there. No orchestration and unclear ownership. Those are all very good reasons. I think there are some others too, but those are the ones that kind of comes to the surface in my mind and in my experience. Especially processes, broken processes. If you have a bad process, generally you shouldn't immediately jump on the wagon and try to implement AI. Why? Because I think the golden rule says fix the process first and then apply AI. I mean, AI is all about scale, and it amplifies things. So if you have a bad process, AI is going to amplify that and you're going to fail. And your bad process is going to fail because it's bad. So you're just scaling inefficiency. So that's the golden rule. I've said to myself, not because I make these things up, but this is all based on the experience that I see what's happening today. And it happened, before too. It wasn't only AI. I mean, you have to fix your process first. So process intelligence is extremely important. I mean, everything that we do in an enterprise, even in a small kind of a mom and pop shop, we're all using computers, and all these event logs, they tell the truth. I mean, there's that data, no matter how they were captured, say a lot. If you listen to the voice of your process, you're actually going to see and understand your process a little better. So what the actual, process flow or workflow is, which is documented and all that. I mean, you do it with Visio now. There are even more fancier tools to do this. A product owner comes and shows you, okay, this is my process, this is my product, how it's flowing. Maybe that's not the case. So actual versus assumed flows could differ. Okay, and then process intelligence also makes those bottlenecks become visible. So it just kind of shows you very clearly, with data visualization and root cause analysis, and that where those bottlenecks are, and sometimes even why, and sometimes even what to do about it. Okay, and then again you combine that with your knowledge, and you have a very, very significant resource in your hands. So that's what process intelligence is these days. So the core gap, I think, in my mind, all these AI systems are extremely dynamic. I once heard something like, and I heard this, I don't know, 15 years ago, or maybe even 20 years ago, that technology, or IT, they said, changes every 6 months. And maybe it's even quicker right now. But organizations are static. And so IT changes in 6 months, but the human uptake of that technology usage is 11 years. I mean, that was statistics. Somebody did maybe an organization did that, and then a presenter shared that with me. Kind of stick with me all these years. It's true. Technology changes so quickly. AI systems are dynamic, but organizations are not as dynamic as AI. So I don't want to say I put down static, but of course organizations wants to be dynamic too, but they're not as dynamic as AI systems. So I think that's the core gap in a simple term. Okay. So here comes agentic AI. I mean, again, I don't like AI to say AI, but saying agentic AI is it's a little bit more meaningful for me. And I go for you also. But when we were to define agentic I mean, these are the words, those bullet points come to my mind, the autonomy, right? And there's reasoning, okay? Very important. There's action, and then there's continuous learning. That's the machine learning aspect of it, part of it. And so all these four things really defines agentic AI. I think it's important to not forget these. So that's a definition that I like in a bullet perspective. Okay. So where is the real value? I mean, there is, and of course, agentic AI will be applied once you're ready for it, once your organization is ready for it. It will be applied to sales workflows. Today, I'm an adjunct professor at UW River Falls, and the class that I'm teaching is sales analytics. I've been teaching that class 6 years now. Every time that I taught, I teach it a little differently. And so this year, I put a little bit of an agentic AI flavor into it, but sales workflows are extremely important. This is, how you get all that data in your organization when you're looking at the sales, and you make something better. I mean, the value really exists for that. Onboarding. So this term is almost like a generic term, but it's used by banks. It's used by credit card companies, which are similar to banks, and fintechs. Service companies, employees, HR. So when you onboard somebody, you onboard an agent. So a workflow, you follow some certain and different, sometimes varying workflows. There's significant value there. Or general operations. I mean, any kind of an operation, logistic firms. The COVID kind of showed the importance of supply chain management. That's a significant operation. The world is kind of depending on. Something happens somewhere in Middle East, and our oil supply is getting an impact, and our operations gets impact, and that's kind of impacts your bottom line and the service. I mean, these are all actually can be found in every one of these, but I still wanted to kind of spell it out separately just to see how where we can associate value. I think significant value exists with all of these and more. Okay, so I'm sure you have your own examples, but and I don't want to get into that. But in banking, I spent most of my career here in Twin Cities in banking and fintech, and we had significant value for that in those industries. Okay, so and then I'm going to switch gears and kind of a transition into TOGAF. Okay, you all know what TOGAF is. You use it, most of it, and I'm sure you're happy with it. It's a great framework. And it's great because it has a structure. Okay, and it has governance, and it has alignment, and it has clarity. Those 4 bullet points really works for TOGAF for making architecture right. And again, there could always be some issues with some specific cases, but generally TOGAF is very strong because it has these. Okay? But TOGAF, does TOGAF has limitation? Especially under agentic AI world or era, it defines structure, but does it define behavior? And when I say behavior, of course, the stakeholders, the humans, and in an organization. So does it define behavior well, or is that a limitation? So just want to kind of throw that out. I have, of course, my opinions, as you could guess, but that's why I named that as a TOGAF limitation. And by the way, I'm not here to make TOGAF bad here. It's just that it's a limitation for agentic AI applications, I said to myself. So I thought that it missed a layer, okay? And then that layer, what was that layer? I asked myself, And of course, I didn't immediately think of this name. That name, of course, if you're from Twin Cities and if you like music, this name will mean something else to you. And initially, I didn't think of this name, and I just started all those different components of that missing layer, and then, of course, I came back to this acronym, which I'm going to talk about right now. And that missing layer was Prince. So what is Prince? Prince framework is process intelligence. When we talked about that, creates a significant value for you. And then you start, the reasoning is extremely important. You start asking these questions. And then comes integration. I mean, your all agentic AI is all about integration. And unless you integrate within your organization, it's not going to give you that value. So integration is definitely a part of it. Navigation is another one. It has to be, these days, anthropologists are being hired by IT companies. The human behavior is studied by them. So navigation, easy to navigate, customer friendly, giving great customer experience is extremely important. So your navigation matters. So navigation is important. And continuous optimization, again, I'm sure you guys agree with that. I'm a Lean Six Sigma green belt, and continuous optimization is all we think about. How can we make it better? And that's always, that's kind of a given in an agile methodology also. And then enablement. You could do all of these things, but if you don't enable your users with the right reasoning, with logic, nobody's going to use it. So enablement is extremely important. So I said, I think these things are needed for making your agentic AI successful and for implementing it. And that's why those letters came from, and that made Prince. I says, oh my gosh, okay, I like that. So I said, okay, I got myself a framework. So that is Prince framework for you. Okay. So what's that going to do? So before we start talking about that, I just want to give you a little bit of a colorful vision, and which would hopefully stay with you. And like I said, at the core, agentic enterprise is right here. And then all of these things: process intelligence, reasoning engines, integration fabric, navigation and orchestration, execution intelligence, continuous optimization, and lastly, enterprise enablement are all around that. And that makes that framework. Okay? So if we do a system view, very, rudimentary, it's the end-to-end, it's an end-to-end adaptive loop, and each component is interdependent. They're all out there, but it's like a stack. So sometimes I refer to this as an agentic AI stack as well. But each component is interdependent. Okay, when we look at the system view. So when you coming back to TOGAF, when you combine TOGAF with Prince, TOGAF does a really great job for design, and Prince will do a good job for behavior. You put them together, you have a wonderful operating model for implementing agentic AI for enterprise, whether that's for sales and marketing or for HR, whatever it might be, wherever that you feel that need for implementation within your enterprise. And of course, because why? Because there's governance is in there. There's even some economic assessment is there. Some companies, maybe it's not mature enough to immediately do the agentic AI implementation. So Prince will just kind of tell you if it is or not. And then you combine that with TOGAF, you have a wonderful operating system model that's going to be successful, or that's going to be less failing, let's say that. Okay, so that's TOGAF plus Prince. And you have all these AI, agentic AI neighborhood models around that. I think you can visualize that. Your agents are actually the workers, and then orchestration is like a BPM, business process management platform. The orchestration does the coordination. So in the center, so there's tremendous amount of data is the foundation, and then the governance is your control. Okay, so that's your neighborhood model. The data reality, I mean, it's really, really important because inconsistent definitions always trip us. And I always, the taxonomy and the data dictionary is so important because, even sometimes in some companies it differs from developer to developer. I mean, they built a database, a SQL Server database, and one developer who called it something else, and then the other one who's maintaining is calling it otherwise. It's very inconsistent. Okay, so your definitions needs to be consistent. Your data dictionary needs to be synchronized and clear. And then it also, data needs to be owned by someone. So if you have siloed ownerships, that's not going to, help. And I mean, overall, this all translates into quality issues. I mean, data cleansing, we all faced with that. I mean, there we spent tons of time and money for cleaning the data, making it look right, and making it be right, actually, I should have said, because data has all these problems upstream and downstream. And it's just if the data has issues, you're going to have quality issues, you're going to have bottlenecks, you're going to have significant customer experiences, and you're not going to be successful. So data reality needs to be really, really handled well. So that's very important for us. So, and the governance layer. I mean, without the governance layer, I mean, again, governance doesn't necessarily mean you have to slow down significantly. I mean, when I say governance, everybody thinks that, oh, that's like government or it's bureaucracy, but it's just having human in the loop. I mean, you have to enforce your policies. I mean, in financial sectors, and others too, industries too. I mean, a bank can lose their license if they're not enforcing those policies. So auditability, I mean, you have to be able to audit, what's going on. And, we all work with auditors time to time. And we shouldn't be just kind of hoping that they don't ding us, right, on that. And because, nobody wants that. But if you have a strong governance layer, I think the possibility of that happening is going to be very minimal, okay? Or maybe optimal. But by keeping humans in the loop and enforcing your policies, having an auditable system is going to be good for you, and that's the governance layer, okay? And then, and of course, I mean, I touched these a little bit. Risk without governance is that's a huge risk. I mean, the decisions are going to drift. The compliance exposure is going to be unmanageable, and if you automate that without fixing it, it's just going to be a uncontrolled chaos. I mean, it just uncontrolled automation is a huge risk. So governance needs to be in place. I mean, I think that if you read the media, newspapers, and when I say newspapers, electronic or actual paper, but if you follow that and if you read them, you're going to see, like Anthropic, for example, Claude having some discussions with Pentagon and some others too. So the governance in agentic AI is extremely important, just like it's important with everything when you're running an enterprise. Okay, so you don't want that kind of a risk. So the operating model shift. So how do you do this? I mean, from static to adaptive, from reporting to acting, right? From tools to systems. I mean, that's just the shift that you have. I mean, that's almost like a paradigm shift in a way. I mean, you have to really accommodate that, and you have to expect that because the technology is going to push you on that. And So you have to be ready. I mean, that's a significant org readiness for you, and but you have to have that operating model shift. Okay. So we're all ROI focused, right? I mean, is that, and we talked about value before in those industries I just mentioned. There was only four, but there's much more than four. So again, if I were to pick a few, cycle time reductions is going to be a big one. Cost efficiency and revenue lift is what I have on the screen. But cycle time reduction, I think you can all relate to that. And if you do something in a first time, without wasting, when a task goes back to the other creator or whoever task doer before you, I mean, that's a waste of time. I mean, that's a significant waste. And everybody measures these things. So all these things cycles out and it contributes to your overall duration of your product's life cycle in the sense that, that it completes its journey. So you would be doing significant reductions there. You're optimizing it. And then cost efficiency just speaks for itself. I don't need to say anything about that. I think we are all for that. And then that's going to lift up your revenue. I mean, it's just, when you onboard your agents or your customers quicker, you're going to recognize revenue quicker. I mean, that's just simple. And so it's going to lift up your revenue. So I think that's the ROI focus that you should always have. And it's very important. Your chief financial officer is going to be asking that from you, definitely. So that's going to make everybody happy. Okay, so adaptation path. I mean, again, there's really not a very, I don't have I'm not going to show any roadmaps here. I can, but I think everybody's adaptation path is different. But I think I hope you all agree. I mean, we start with a little bit crawling and then start walking, and then we orchestrate all these things, and that's pretty much what your agile methodology is. So that's not something new. You pick up a product and you start with your MVP, and then you increment, and then you go and then you orchestrate that. Okay, and that's how you scale your adaptation. But again, this is going to differ from enterprise to enterprise. But if you adopt a path it's similar to these fundamental bullet points, I think you'll be good. So, final thought. It's only 2 boxes. So, enterprise is not built once. I mean, actually, if it were, none of these companies around would be like how they are today. They would be how they were found out, I don't know, years ago, okay? Some more 100 years ago. So it's not built once, it's continuously optimized. And if you're going to do agentic AI implementation for your enterprise, you better follow a framework. If you don't have to call it Prince, call it whatever you like. But I think, I hope you see the components that I talked about, and I hope that you see the value that it brings, and I hope you follow a framework, because if you don't, and if you immediately start implementing or acquiring agentic AI agents, I don't think that you're going to be as successful. Okay, so I have a very positive perspective to that. I'm not going to say you're going to fail, but you're not going to be as successful. So that's my final thought. And I think at the beginning, Jenny shared my bio if you want to talk more about that. And I think we're going to have an interview afterwards as a follow-up. And I'm certainly very open to having your questions, your opinions. I value each and every one of them. And I thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much, Jenny, for putting this together. And with that, I'm going to end my talk.